Hey there, Mark Brown. When there's a game changer in the industry, I believe it's our duty to let people know. I am so pumped. I have been using this new tool, but there's actually a guy behind the tool. So we want to find out the story, the origin story. But if you haven't heard of this, or if you heard of this, you have to understand the power of what was created to help you get more gigs, get more feedback. Oh my goodness. Mark Brown, any initial thoughts?
Well, I must admit, I am flat excited because this is all new to me. I am as eager as our audience is to find out more about this new tool and its creator. Let's do this, Darren.
Anyone can give a presentation. Few deliver unforgettable presentations. What's the difference? You're about to find out. Welcome to the Unforgettable Presentations Podcasts with your hosts, world champion speakers and coaches Mark Brown.
Your life tells a story, and there's someone out there who needs to hear it.
And Darren LaCroix.
Stage time, stage time, stage time.
Ready for some powerful presentation ahas? Let's dive right in.
If you're a speaker, trainer, you need to listen up. This is critical. This is critical to your career, to your message, helping people. And Mark, so here's the background. I'm with my buddy Ron Carr, which we have one of those, we see each other at the convention. We're not like best buds, but it's like, hey, we should hang out sometime. So I hang out with him at Chad Hymas's son's wedding, and he's like, hey, I got a speech in Vegas next week. And I said, hey, let me pick you up at the airport. I really want to spend some more time with you. So we're driving in the car, and do you know about TALKADOT? He starts showing, I'm like, what is TALKADOT? I never heard of TALKADOT. He pulls out his phone, he goes, you got to see this. And he's literally showing me the screens, the reports, and I don't know. But here's what really got me interested. And Arel, you don't even know this story. He said, Arel, the guy who started this, he is just an unbelievable human being.
Cool.
You don't hear that a lot
Cool.
from somebody, Anyway, I was intrigued. I loved what I saw, but I was only scratching the surface. So, well, let's get him on here. Arel,
Arel Moodie.
We'll go into the TALKADOT thing a little later, but let's find out about you. Like, to impress Ron Carr and have that be the first thing he tells me would just blew me away. So, and I have had unbelievable customer service. I don't think Mike sleeps. One of the guys who, whenever I get a question or don't understand something, he is like on it. And if it's hard to explain, he shows me a little video. Anyway, we'll get to that. Let's find out about Arel.
Oh my gosh. Well, listen, dude, I'm super excited to be here. And the secret to having people like Ron Carr say really nice things to you is paying them constantly a retainer so that whenever the opportunity comes up to speak. So thank you, Ron. Your retainer is in the mail. No, but I'm one of those people that have been in love with the art of speaking. I am no grand champion like both of you are, but I've been enamored with the art of speaking. When I was 19 years old, I saw a professional speaker, and I remember saying to myself, I don't know what that guy's doing, but I want to do that for the rest of my life. There was this like resonance inside of me of whatever that is, that's the thing that I want to do. And I've been doing professional speaking for 17 years now and started in lots of different niches, but I started in the student niche. And I know that, Mark, you help a lot of students with bullying and help youth get over that, which I very much admire, because that's where I started. I was very young. I was 23 years old when I started. So I was like, well, no one's going to want to listen to me. And an amazing guy named Victor Antonio, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with Victor. He's a great speaker, great guy. He actually came to speak at my university, and I came up to him afterwards and I said, dude, one day, 20 years from now, I want to be doing what you're doing. And, Victor, in his simplicity and wisdom, just said, well, why don't you start now? And I was like, well, no one's going to want to listen to me. he's like, well, tell me about your story. And I was like, well, I grew up in the projects on welfare in Brooklyn. I got into college and started a business when I was in college. I got introduced to entrepreneurship. He was like, well, why don't you talk to students about how they can be successful? And I was like, well, I mean, that like people would pay for that. That's like, that would be a dream. And to this day, it still feels like a dream that you get paid to talk about something you're passionate about. And it's been an honor to travel 48 states, 5 countries, 750,000 people in those 17 years. So it's been quite an honor, quite a journey.
Wow. And tell us about your first presentation. Do you remember whether it was?
I do. University of North Florida. I'll never forget it. It was University of North Florida. I was pacing the hallways, and I think I had 4 people show up. It was like a Sunday morning at like, I don't know, 9:30 a.m. volunteer presentation for college students. And I was like, well, this is going to be good, but you know what? One of the best pieces of advice someone gave me was never go down to your audience's level. Always bring your audience to your level. So whether you've got 400, whether you've got 4, you've got to set the tone and you've got to decide what that tone's going to be. And it was absolutely amazing. It was an absolute vacuum. I think I was one of those people that the first speech itself, I don't even know what I said. I don't even know what happened. I remember before, I remember after, but during I was like, but I was hooked. It was like, having someone ask you to take a photo with them, to me, it's not a lot of times when people have a photo taken, they go, ooh, people like me. I think of it more as when someone asks me to take a photo, that means that the experience left such an indelible mark on that person's soul that they want to capture it so that they can remember and recall it. And the ability to do that and give that gift to others is just, it's a special thing that I don't think any other art form has the ability to transform someone's life in 1 hour the way a good presentation does. I just don't think there's any other art form that does it. So it's a joy beyond joys.
I love that. No other art form has the ability to transform people's lives in 1 hour. What a difference an hour can make. Appreciate it, Arel. I do. Thank you, Arel.
Yeah, no, of course.
All right. I'm going to do something we've never, ever done before on this podcast, 225 episodes. All right. We have 2 dad joke guys here.
Oh, no.
And we're going to do a mini dad joke off. And Mark, we're going to start with you. We're just going to go back and forth, 3 each. 3 each. Let's see what we got here. And you, the listener, you can go on and vote which ones are delivered best.
No one loses in a dad joke contest. Everyone wins.
Yeah. You know what, though? I'll tell you this much, though, Darren. You know me. I'm a soccer player, right? But when you get injured, you find yourself at the foot of the hill trying to make your way back up.
Oh, man.
That kind of reminds me of when I used to be addicted to the hokey pokey, but then I turned myself around. That's what it's all about.
I tell you, Arel, that was so well done. I got to hand it to you, my friend.
Well, it reminds me of the question of what do you call a row of rabbits marching backwards?
No idea.
A receding hairline.
Oh, my goodness. Hey, Darren, I am not really much of a farmer. I live in the country right now. And one of my neighbors who owns a farm down the street, he won the award for the most amazing cornfield where no birds got there. Because you know what? He went there himself as a scarecrow. They told him you were outstanding in your field. So.
Wow. That reminds me of the guy who really wanted to go around and tell everyone about the benefits of dried grapes.
Really?
Mm-hmm. It's all about raising awareness.
I love that. Real quick, by the way, Darren, here in Georgia is a military base called Warner Robins, not far from here. It's an Air Force base. Did you hear about the time that they court-martialed the military attaché? You didn't, huh? It was a brief case.
All right, last one. I don't know if I can handle it anymore.
Yeah. That was a great pun. It kind of reminds me of what happened when I found out that the semicolon got arrested. Did you hear about what happened when the semicolon got arrested?
No.
Yeah, it turns out it's serving 2 consecutive sentences.
All right. Thank you for the first ever.
Make this a thing. Make this a thing, Darren. Make this a thing.
Well, we might have to have you back if we can't find another dad joke guy. Maybe we'll just do an episode of dad jokes. Wow. Okay. So when you find common ground, we got to have it on the podcast. So thanks. Thank you both for entertaining us. And so, Arel, what are you talking about now? What's your subject now?
So, what happens with, I think, professional speakers is we talk about what we are most interested in, like what we're enamored with at the time. For some of us, that's like a forever thing. And for some of us, it evolves. Over the last few years, I came across this incredible body of research called adult development theory. And the summation of it is many people are familiar with child development theory, that children pass through these predictable stages of development. It's kind of like a 6-month-old doesn't have something called object permanence. So you can play peekaboo with a 6-month-old and they think you've disappeared. But if you played peekaboo with a 16-year-old, you would get arrested for stranger danger because they're like, you're clearly right behind your hands, right? So those same stages of child development theory, actually over 60 years of research have proven that adults pass through predictable and sequential stages of development. The difference is where, say, generational data shows how people make decisions based on how old they are. Adult development theory shows how people make decisions based on how mature they are. So there's different stages of maturity that we go throughout our life. And once you understand these stages, you can understand how to better influence people, connect people, see where they're at, speak to them in a deep way, understand yourself, understand what's happening next. So I go into organizations and I teach them how to use this strategy to build their culture, to help their leaders, and help folks better connect with customer loyalty as well.
What stage of maturity right after dad jokes?
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's got to be its own unique stage. I think dad jokes should be, that's the highest, I think that's the highest level stage, actually. I think that's the stage we all aspire to be in. So congratulations, Mark, you have reached nirvana.
Well, I appreciate that because, when your adult kids buy you a dad joke book for your birthday, that's kind of scary, and but you know what? It's all in good fun. And I like the idea of when the concept about adult development theory. I don't know if in your study of this particular phenomenon, Arel, you found that the way we as adults respond to dad jokes is any kind of indication that we're childish, childlike, immature, or mature or not. Because I think dad jokes are great. My kids roll their eyes, but maybe it's part of our development to enjoy these kind of jokes.
Yeah. It's always interesting because the way the stages of development work, which I think are very fascinating, is the stages that I focus on teaching are 4 stages. So the first stage that we all go through in our adult life is called self-centric, right? So it's all about what do I get out of it? And if you think about like younger in your career, it's like, well, how do I get ahead? How do I advance? How do I learn what other people want? Not because I care necessarily about them. I'm trying to get something from them, right? So we all kind of start there. And then we can stay in that stage our whole life. But then after that, what happens is something called the group-centric stage, where, this lone wolf thing, doing everything by myself, it's not getting me the results I want. I want to feel a sense of belonging. I want to feel like I'm part of a group. So for many of us as speakers, professional speakers, becomes our group, becomes like, this is my tribe, this is my people. These are the people that like get me, I get them, and then they represent me. So if you attack them, you attack me, right? It's that kind of idea. Then what happens when you're in the group is that after a while you realize, I love the group. Like, I bet both of you love professional speakers, but you said to yourself, you know what? I want to be best in the world. I don't want to just be another professional speaker. I've got to find something, some topic, some skill set that will separate me. And that's the next stage, which is skill-centric. What skill represents you? What is that thing that you want to spend all of your time becoming best in the world at? And then after a while, you can realize that no matter how good you are at a skill, you can't do everything. You can't impact everyone, everywhere. You've got to move to the 4th, which is the highest conventional stage, which is called the achiever stage. This is where it's about developing other people. It's kind of when you go from player to coach. It's more about goal setting, giving back, supporting, and helping others. And I spend a lot of my time there. So a dad joke might show up to each person very differently. Self-centric person might go, well, could I use that to benefit me in the future? Group-centric might go, oh, I've got to tell that to all my buddies. Everyone's going to love it. Skill-centric might go, well, does this help me get better at what I do? If not, I couldn't care about it. And then the achiever might go, oh, I'm going to open up my next team meeting with that joke because I think it'll break the ice. So how we relate to things depends on what stage we're in. So it's the same thing. But as one person once said, and the way to build a really, really good presentation is you have one idea and you hit it from 3 different directions. Is that right, Darren? And you've got to have the analytical people and folks like that. So it's the same way that one idea can be hit from different directions. A dad joke can also be hit.
Wow, we might have just given you a new metaphor for your speeches, the dad joke theory.
Ooh, we can develop that thing, Arel. Arel, go for it,
Mark,
man.
I think you got to run with it. I think I'm gonna gracefully pass the baton for you. The dad joke theory. Listen.
Well, it could apply to what Mark does. It could apply to what you do.
It also applies, Darren. Honestly, I think about stage time too. People come in and want to be better at what they do, and then they find this group in stage time, and they get involved in that. But while we're going through that, we say, okay, what's your niche? How do you stand out? What is your topic? What is your lane? We discuss all of that. And then many of our members go on to coach other members as well. Mm-hmm. So that very brief mini seminar can apply to what we do at stage time. So thank you, Arel. I appreciate that too. Cool.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say about that is it's actually interesting. If you look at most of our adult journeys, we pass through that, right? If you take something like martial arts, right? Someone might first come into martial arts because like, I want to defend myself. I want to beat people up. I don't want people to mess with me. That's self-centric. Then you love the art form and you're like, ooh, like this idea of like, martial arts karate, like it's my group, it's my people. But then you go, no, I can't just be like those white belts, those yellow belts. I've got to excel at katas or sparring or being a black belt that like travels and then after a while you start going, no, the real joy is passing this gift on to others. I want to become a sensei. So if you kind of look at like all of these, like I could pull out lots of different examples. This journey we go through is very predictable and very sequential.
Nice. Well said. Thrilled to have you here. Thrilled to know more of your story. Back in the 80s, before Arel was born, one of the things that I heard in the NSA, the National Speakers Association world, is that 80% of your paid presentations, 80% of your paid presentations come as a result of someone who's actually seen you speak. Now, they might not be the person who hires you, but you were referred or some one of those Kevin Bacon. What's that called? The
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Yeah. 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, exactly. So I'd really love to hear the story behind where did TALKADOT come from?
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you the story that I'm not sure if anyone has ever heard this story publicly before. So this is like a exclusive here.
Exclusive. We'll take it.
I was going through a phase during the pandemic, which many of us as professional speakers, where we were like, what are we going to do? What's going to happen to the speaking industry? This was like before virtual speaking became like hot potatoes, and everyone was like, I can get paid to just be in my office and do the same thing I love to do. This is wonderful. It was actually sweet, right? Like you got to impact people and still put your kids to bed at night, right? So before that became a thing, there was this large period of time where people had to go, who am I now? Like if I can't go out on stages and speak, and I went through that, and I was very, very much like, is the speaking industry dead? Is this like, are we never going to be back in person again? So I started saying to myself, well, what can I do? And I had the skill set of speaking. I've been doing it for many, many years. I love it. It's an art form. I treat it and care for it such. I was like, you know what? Let me help people who want to get better at speaking. I think it's like you said, it's a very natural evolution of the game. So I started helping entrepreneurs and business owners who wanted to get better at public speaking, get better at it. I was part of an entrepreneurship group. So I was like, hey, I'll help, run a speaker kind of group. And then from running that speaker group, which I wasn't getting paid for, I was just doing it. One of the members was like, I really, really want like one-on-one time with you. Could you help coach me in speaking? And I said, sure. Now she had just sold a tech business. So she was going through, maybe I should be a speaker. Maybe I need to get better at speaking. And So I'm helping her with it. So we work through her message and her story, and how do we do all that wonderful stuff that someone like Darren is way better at, and someone like Mark is way better than I'll ever be, right? So I work through it, and now we have the speech, and she's like, all right, we got it. It's good. Now you got to go deliver it, right? It was like, we got to find places for you to go deliver, this speech. Wonderful. Let's find like groups. And this, by the time I finished the coaching, that was about a year-long coaching program. By the time we got to the tail end of it, the world virtual speaking became a thing. It was opening up. So it was like, we got to find you places to get talk. She was like, great. How do I do that? So I started explaining to her, well, you got to get in front of people who've seen you speak, and some people, they have to know who you are. They've got to trust you. And she was like, yeah, but how do people objectively find something? And I was like, well, like that's not really how the industry works. Like it is really much like kind of, who you know, how you know them. And so what happens for people who want to get started, for anyone who's listening who's a novice, you've experienced this pain. You go to a speaker and you say, give me advice on how to get started with speaking. And they say, oh, well, people just come to me and then I go speak. They're like, but how do you get the ball rolling? How do you start that? How do you wait, I understand the end point, but what about that beginning point? And a lot of speakers, they can't even recall, like it just kind of maybe happened. So she kept asking me this wonderful question. Why is it done that way? Why is it done that way? Why is it done that way? And I kept saying the worst answer, which is, that's the way it's always been. That's the way it's always been. That's the way the industry is. So her mind started churning. And then she said, on one of our coaching sessions, she said something to me that I'll never forget. She said, it seems like this industry could use a lot of help. And I was like, yeah, it could, because it's been kind of operating respectfully. And I love this craft, I want to be clear, but we've been operating kind of like in the VHS world when everyone else has moved on to the iPhone world, right? As an example. Mm-hmm. And she was like, well, someone should do something about it. I was like, yeah, I would love it if someone did something about it, but here we are. And she said, what if we did something about it? She's like, you understand the industry. You know it really, really well. I have this tech background. What if we built something to try to solve these problems so that the right speakers can get in the right events every single time? And I was like, that sounds like crazy talk, and I like it, right? Like that's exactly the kind of crazy talk I like. So her name is Pokin Young, and she's one of my co-founders with TALKADOT. And from there, so she had an incredible product background, like she knows how to build beautiful products, but we needed a technical co-founder. So we went, there's a group called Y Combinator. If anyone's not familiar with it, it's a wonderful accelerator, but they also have a co-founder matching platform. And we found our technical co-founder who can actually build it, named Jared Califf. And it's been a wild journey. We're just about like over 2 years into this journey. And the first 6 months was trying to figure out, well, what problem are we going to solve today? How do we solve it? And the decision we landed on in that first 6 months is what turned into what we all now know as TALKADOT. And now it's an iterative process of trying to make it the best tool possible to help speakers capture everyone in your audience who wants to book you to speak. So you don't have to worry about if you exchange cards with them after on the stage. We want to actually help speakers prove the ROI and value of their presentations, because most speakers can't. I heard one speaker say what most speakers do is they show up, they blow up, and then they giddy up. And I thought that was a perfect, how do you measure? How do you know you've actually done an impact? How do you know? So we want to take something that's very intangible for speakers and make it tangible so we can show the value we bring. Mm-hmm. And then we wanted to make it easy for people to build a relationship with their audience long after the talk is over by capturing their email addresses and putting them onto their email list. Because most speakers, if I were to ask them, let's say you're listening to this and you're an experienced speaker, and you'll say something with pride, like, I've been speaking for 15 years. And you go, oh my gosh, how many people have you spoken to in those 15 years? Easily 500,000 people. 500,000 people? How many of those people are on your email list? Well, I haven't really spent a lot. But imagine if you had 300,000 people who've seen you speak on your email list that you've been building a relationship with. When you have a coaching program, when you have a course, when you have a need for speaking engagement, you can fill it like that. That's what the biggest people know. They know the money is in a list. So we help solve all three of those problems for speakers just by having a speaker throw up a QR code at the end of their presentation that leads to a survey that captures all of this data, turns it all into reports for you, captures all your leads, categorizes them by cold, warm, hot leads, and builds your email list, all within 2 minutes of a presentation.
What I love about it myself personally is it's hard to say, hey, if you're interested in hiring me. Patricia Fripp's the only one who does that impeccably well.
I mean, she's like, that's like saying Michael Jordan does that. Other people should. It's like, you know, she's in her own league.
So she's, one of her closings is, so for those of you who don't know, she's a legend. She's a mentor. She knows I do impressions of her, and she actually cracks up. So she says, if you don't remember anything, remember FRIPP, F-R-I-P-P, frequently reinforce, and I don't remember it all.
Ideas that are
profitable and practical. Something to that effect. And then she says, when I walk off stage, I'm unemployed. And so she asks for people to just hire her or recommend her. Now, Patricia, I didn't do it word for word. It just popped into my head. So forgive me for that. But when you are a speaker, you want to look good. You want to help the audience and serve the audience. You don't want to pitch the next one. What I love, and the value that I see in this is I can simply ask for feedback, put up the slide, which you guys make for us. It's got a QR code on it. Everybody's already conditioned. Thank you, COVID, for a positive condition to know what a QR code, even some of the older people.
Thank you, Darren.
Included, yes. And now they get to do a very quick, was it relatable, quick, boom, boom, boom. But then we can customize a question. So I was speaking this weekend in California, small group, but I have a humor boot camp coming up on Saturday. If you're listening to this, it was last Saturday, but it was coming up. And so I customized the question because they were adamant about me not selling. Would you like to know more about my one-day virtual humor boot camp? So I just asked that question and I got some referrals from a few of them and I followed up. So what I see as the value is it's just very subtle, asking for something that's normal, that people want to do, give you feedback. But then with the questions and the brilliance, the simplicity, like you're talking, Mark will tell you, you're talking Darren's language. In my office, RL, we have a thing, you got to Darren it down. You got to Darren it down. And it's a challenge for me, and it's an asset because it makes me a great teacher. I can't teach something until I understand it. So it makes me focus and understand it. But
dude, I'm sorry, finish, because I love, because no one has seen that the way you just said it, and we put so much attention into the problem you just presented. So I'm sorry, I got so hyped. I'm gonna let you finish your thought, but
it's a conversation, man.
No, dude, the reason why I love the fact that you can actually see that, and not everyone can see that, and I really love the fact that you can, is because if you pitch on stage, 99% of the time, you could get blackballed in the keynote world.
Yep.
They're not going to want you. They're going to be like, oh, don't invite him. Like, obviously, Patricia, there's always a legend who can break the general rules. But generally speaking, pitching from stage will get you blackballed in our industry, right? So we wanted to really figure out, how do we create a win-win-win so that the speaker wins, the client wins, and the audience member wins. So the way that we set up our tool is that we're asking for feedback. We're like, we want to know what you liked about it so we can better. And then you get a data report that's automatically created that you share that data report with your client. So the client wins because they get this ROI measurement tool that they can put in their annual report, they can show to their board, they can show in their grants if they're writing grants on what they've done. And they love measurement. And with TALKADOT, we've figured out how to get about 60 to 80% of an audience to actually give feedback, where most surveys get like 5% if they're lucky. So the client loves the fact that they have this large data set and this beautiful report. So they're like happy that you asked for it. From the audience perspective, we ask a question, do you book paid speakers? If they say no, our system does branch logic and jumps any other lead generation questions. It doesn't ask it at all. So no one in the audience is getting peppered with questions that they would be like offended. Oh, you're selling to me, I get upset. So they don't get those at all. Only the people who actually want to get it. And then we qualify them. Well, would you like to book Darren? Oh, you would. Please give us your information. But then everyone in the audience, regardless of who they are, as a thank you for taking the survey, they get access to a bonus that the speaker can give them. So if the speaker is like, hey, I'd love to give you a copy of, deliver unforgettable presentations. I'd love to give you an ebook of that as a thank you for giving me your feedback. Now everyone goes, well, I want the ebook. So they take the survey and they get it. So they get something for it. And then me as a speaker, I get feedback, I get data, but I also get a list of everyone who rose their hand and said, I book speakers, I'd like to book you, or I'd like to refer you to someone who does. So because of the way this was strategically set up, which I just so appreciate that you could actually see that, Darren, the client wins, the audience wins, and the speaker wins, and no one feels dirty about it. No one feels like you were like, sullying the stage in any way. So there was a lot of thought put into how to set it up in hopefully a really simple way that's, when something works really well, you don't even notice it. The fact that you notice it, I just want to give you your flowers because I think that's awesome.
You know what's cool is I love this win-win-win idea, and embedded therein for me as a presenter is a reminder that when I'm on stage, I want to create an environment where my client wins and my audience wins. And if I can create wins for them with this tool you're talking about TALKADOT, I'll also create a win for myself. But as a speaker, and I hope everyone catches this, yes, we're giving you a tool, we're sharing with you a tool that can really elevate your business. But as a presenter, bear in mind the idea, if my client wins and my audience wins, chances are I will too. So I'm going to branch off very briefly from this topic and invite our audience members to remember when you prepare and present a presentation with that mindset, it's less selfish, but on the back end, the results can benefit you as well. I hope that makes sense, Darren and Arel. Okay.
It does. One of the biggest mistakes I see novice speakers make is that, and I'm going to say this respectfully because I think it will help someone, especially if they're new. They treat the stage as if it is their personal therapy session. So they go on stage and they go, here's all these bad things that happened to me. And here's all these horrible things that happened to me. But you know what? I overcame it. I didn't let them hold me down. Thank you very much for your time. And it's like, well, wait a minute. What do I as the audience member like? Knowing that your story is only a vehicle to impact your audience's life. Your story is not the beginning and the end. It's not the alpha and the omega. It is a vehicle to impact lives. So when you actually realize, well, what is the lesson I want someone to extrapolate from my story so that my audience wins? Then if you're really about the game, you ask your client in a pre-event call, and I recommend all speakers have a pre-event call. Ask them this question. If I gave you a magic wand and you could wave it over this event, what would be the perfect result because this event happened be? And then let your client tell you what is the perfect result they want. Do they want more people to sign up for a program, an initiative? Do they want less conflict during meetings? You want to know, why is your host bringing you in? What problem are they hoping to solve? And then make sure you're tailoring your message to just hit those points. So if they want them to sign up for like their 401k, like I'm just making this up, like, not enough of our, employees are signing up for their 401k. So you can do the exact same message you would do, but then say, look, if you want to take an action step about believing in yourself, believe in your future self. Believe that your future self deserves a wonderful retirement. You've got to max out your 401k. I want you to leave here today and take the first step of setting it up and like you could just take 30 seconds to say that, and your client's going to be like, thank you. Oh my gosh. Like you did exactly. No one ever does that. So the client wins, the audience wins, but the stage is not let me just tell you about why my life was so bad and how I got over it and like, goodbye. So I'm a big advocate of what you're saying there, Mark, that creating that win-win for the audience, creating that win for your client. That's what makes a professional speaker the difference from a public speaker, right? A public speaker is someone who's an orator. A professional speaker understands these nuances, so they serve their clients.
I like that. Orator versus servant. I like that. Wow.
Yeah, giving this scenario, especially if you're an emerging speaker, think about it this way. If you're not collecting referrals and staying in touch with them, any salesperson knows the numbers, knows that you've got to reach out 7 times, or whatever that number is. It's not my expertise, but you got to reach out a certain number of times. So if the key to closing sales, to getting more bookings, is staying in touch with them and reaching out 7 times, how can you think for a second you can speak once and you're going to get all the referrals that were potential? You might get a couple, but you're missing so much opportunity. So here's the idea. Let's just say you're an emerging speaker. You give a program on customer service and you do really good and the audience loves you. And you have Barbara's in the audience. Barbara loves you. Barbara goes home and tells her husband what a great program you did on customer service. Cool. He's appreciative. They have a great conversation. A month goes by, 2 months goes by. Next month, the husband has a problem. He has a meeting coming up and they have a challenge with customer service. So they need to bring in an expert. And he says, hey, do you remember that person who you saw that give that presentation on customer service? Who was that? Well, and it's over. Like that missed opportunity happened 3 months later, but because we didn't stay in touch, we didn't make sure Barbara had our contact information. So in that scenario, it's our job to stay in touch with the audience, whether it's potential bookings or potential referrals or potential buyers of our coaching, of our books, anything like that.
Darren, I'm just always impressed by someone who can understand nuance at the level that you do. What most speakers believe is that 6 months from now, that conversation is going to go like this. Who was that guy? Oh, it was Darren LaCroix. Let me go reach. Like, we think people are going to remember our name. They're going to be like, oh, he was funny and he was good. And like, at best, they're going to do that. And if they're lucky, they'll remember what your name sounded like. And I think people actually don't realize that the secret to speaking is consistently being top of mind. One of the reasons why certain speakers do so well is because you're constantly seeing them. And the easiest way to do that is through email, because someone can go, what was the name? I don't know, but maybe stage. There's something about stage. And then they go to their email and they type in the word stage because it's the keyword they remember. So speakers actually have to know, like, what keywords do I want people to remember me? So if they forgot everything about me, they could go in their email and type in stage or unforgettable or something like that. And then they'll see your emails. But if you gave a presentation 9 months ago, good, they're going to go to Google, type in stage or unforgettable, find someone else and go, that's close enough, and book them. So the staying in touch is one of the simplest low-hanging fruit that I think the majority of speakers just absolutely miss the boat on. And they don't even think like that in the beginning. So they're losing opportunity, because what you said, I want to reemphasize. Someone today might book you in a year from now. So you've got to plant the seed today to make your future self in a better position. And if you don't do that now, a year from now, a year will pass and you got nothing. And you're going to be frustrated as you are today. But if you start planting seeds today, when it's harvest time, you're going to be really grateful your past self stayed in touch, collected emails, reached out to people, did those 7 touch points. And that's what I think is the difference between people who are masters in the game and constantly booked, and people who are like, I got a good message, I got a good story, I impact people's lives. Like, why aren't people reaching out?
Nice.
And the TALKADOT tool gives you the ability, the facility to have that contact information sent to you and qualified as well. And that to me is really most impressive, Arel. When you said it stops, if no one says, I will book or I'll refer, your program, your algorithm says, okay, let's not